When you think about it, all law, all legislation is about the restriction of freedom. That's exactly what we're doing here, is we are restricting freedom, but we're doing it for the common good. You will see throughout our Constitution, yes, you have rights, but they are restricted for the common good. Everything needs to be balanced. And if your views on other people's identities go to make their lives unsafe, insecure, and cause them such deep discomfort that they cannot live in peace, then I believe that it is our job as legislators to restrict those freedoms for the common good.
All law is about the restriction of freedom? Yeah, no, it's not. Most laws actually don't have anything to do with freedom. If you skim Canada's Constitution Act, you can see all the things the law deals with. Unemployment insurance, postal service, census, the military, navigation and shipping, fisheries, currency, coins, banks, weights and measures, bankruptcy, marriage, immigration. I'll stop there. Now, of course, some of those absolutely do limit our freedoms. I mean, if you're jailed under the criminal law provisions, that absolutely does limit your freedom of mobility, for example. And I'm not here to say the government doesn't infringe our freedoms. It absolutely does, way too much. But it is an insane thing to say that by definition, all laws are about shrinking your freedom. And that she said it as if that was the happy point of it, that was a quality, not a feature, not a bug. That's normal and has to be accepted. She was happy about that. I mean, I suppose every law does in a way limit our freedom, but not the way she meant it. And she was thrilled about that. That's a bully's idea. It's a madman's idea, an authoritarian dictator's idea. That's someone who doesn't trust her friends and her neighbors, but wants to rule over them. She says the word common good so many times, it's like it's a magic spell, like it is sufficient to say that before taking away your neighbor's rights. I'm doing this abracadabra for the common good. You have to stay in your homes for months. You have to do that for the common good. You can't go to school or work or to a park. You can't have a wedding or a funeral. You can't go to church for the common good. You can't have your family over. You can't have Christmas dinner because of the common good. Presto. And these tyrants alone will decide what is or isn't in the common good. We just lived through 3 years of that, and we found out it wasn't for the common good. It hurt the common good. The lockdowns had no scientific basis or benefit, neither did the masks, and the vaccines certainly didn't vaccinate. These people had no special knowledge. They just used COVID as the latest excuse for the common good. They'll use climate as an excuse for the common good. Now you can see they're using people's feelings as a reason to take away your rights. Did you catch that part where she said, if your views on other people's identities go to make their lives unsafe and insecure and cause them such deep discomfort that they cannot live in peace, then you can restrict those freedoms. What? So if you merely have views that are wrong in the eyes of the law, you must be restricted? Views. If your views are wrong, and she'll decide that. You heard her. Views about other people's identities. What? You can't have an opinion because that will make other people uncomfortable, she says. She said that. So you must have your freedom limited because your views cause someone else discomfort. She said that. But what if they cause you discomfort too? Is only one side of a debate allowed to cause discomfort and only one side, the other side of the debate, required to endure discomfort? This is madness. This is not law. This is totalitarianism in the name of safety. You know, Jordan Peterson would say, this is the modern manifestation of authoritarianism in a female way, a different shade of bullying compared to the typical male authoritarianism, which we've had an eternity of experience. It's a more recent thing to see female totalitarians, isn't it? But just think about what we went through during the lockdowns. Theresa Tam. Remember her?
If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings. It's potential you could track people, put bracelets on their arms, have police and other setups to ensure quarantine is undertaken. It is better to be preemptive and precautionary and take the heat of people thinking you might be overreactionary, get ahead of the curve, and then think about whether you've overreacted later. But it's such a serious situation that I think decisive early action is the key.
Toronto's public health boss, Eileen de Villa, very butch, sending in the riot horses against her restaurant. Alberta's Dina Hinshaw expropriating, seizing a church and turning it into an armed garrison. BC's Bonnie Henry, women can be as vicious as men, I'll have you know. They frame their bullying in the same sort of way, quite often as each other. This is about safety. This is about compassion. It's a different way of being totalitarian than men typically are. I'm only hurting you because I care more than you. I'm only being a bully because I'm more compassionate than you. It's the common good that makes me do it. In fact, look, it is not for the common good, and all laws should not be about restricting freedom. May I direct your attention to Canada's basic law, the Constitution, the Charter of Rights, or the U.S. Constitution, or the Magna Carta, on which both were built. All of the laws I just listed are about limiting government power, not limiting citizens' freedom. The Magna Carta was about forcing limits onto a king. Here's my favorite part of our Canadian Constitution. It's Section 2 of the Charter of Rights, which is part of our Constitution. It's called Fundamental Freedoms. I'm going to read them because I love them. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms. A, freedom of conscience and religion. B, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. C, freedom of peaceful assembly. And D, freedom of association. Those are laws that strengthen people and limit the government. That's the kind of law I like. By the way, the freedom they mean, freedom of association, freedom of speech, means freedom from government, by the way. Here's another woman who wants the power to silence people because she cares more than you. And this is how she shows it. This is Justice Minister Helen McEntee. And by the way, only haters hate hate speech laws. You hater. Take a look.
Minister, yesterday you indicated that the only people who oppose your government's hate speech laws are, quote, fringe commentators. But of the thousands of replies to your own government's public consultations, 73% were negative. And according to the last poll done on the subject, 65% of people oppose such laws. So is it not, in fact, your government that's endorsing the fringe position here?
What I think is very clear, and this is coming from the significant amount of public consultation that we've had in the last 4 years, consultation that started back in 2018, is that there is a very clear group of minority people in this country who are simply targeted and who are being either victimised or harassed, assaulted, who are victims of hate speech and hate crime simply because of who they are. So that is very clear, that is based on fact, and that is also based on reports that we have.
But Minister, with request, that's not what I asked. But I'm sorry, that's not what I asked. And also, I've gone through every single one of the consultation responses. There were about 3,600 of them, and that's really not what they said. The vast majority of people said they don't want this. So where are you getting the idea that there's public outcry for this other than government-paid NGOs?
So that's incorrect to say that the vast majority of people don't want this. I think even if you were to listen to the debate last night in the Seanad and certainly the debate in the Dáil, the vast majority of people do want this.
But those are politicians. We're talking about the general public. Where's the public outcry?
I can either answer the question or not, but I mean, what I'm basing this on is very clear factual evidence. If you speak to An Garda Síochána, there has been a 29% increase in hate crimes across this country. So while we don't have hate crime legislation...
Recorded hate crimes.
So I didn't quite get the statistic there. Was it 65% or 73% oppose this hate speech law? And this justice minister says that people are victimized or harassed or assaulted by hate crimes. Well, those are three different things. Victimized, harassed, or assaulted. Which does she mean? Which is she banning? Does she even know? Here's another censor. Ireland's full of them, apparently. Here's Senator Joe O'Reilly. He actually says that the Holocaust and street violence is really just speech run amok and jokes, and that jokes have to be censored. He actually says without this law, which has never been in effect in history, it would be like Lord of the Flies, out there, just unlimited violence and cruelty. Take a look.
The Holocaust began in the very early 30s with hate speech. It progressed from hate speech to hate crimes. And that progressed ultimately to the Holocaust. The attacks on the traveller community do not begin on the night of the attack. They begin through the hate speech in pubs and the warm-up and the remarks around the place that give a legitimacy to all this. The attacks, the homophobic attacks in parks, do not begin on the night. They begin with homophobic remarks, they begin with smutty jokes, they begin with exclusion. But what happened in Navan, those children didn't get up some morning and they were conditioned. It's jokes, it's stuff online, it's stuff from television screens, etc. It's a conditioning that brought them to that dreadful position, a sort of a Lord of the Flies thing, but something that's fed into, and that has to be considered.
Well, thank God he's here to fix it. I mean, how has Ireland managed to escape the Nazi Holocaust or the Lord of the Flies wild anarchy without his guidance in this law? It's amazing that Ireland hasn't had a Holocaust, because this law is what would stop the Holocaust. What a grandiose buffoon. By the way, this is all about being a battering ram against parents who are concerned about transgenderism being pushed in the schools. That is what this is all about. That's the front line of the free speech battle now. Shutting up parents. That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.